Hello everybody, it's Mike Levin, and we get yet another surprise snow at the beginning of March 2015, and this is my second Google Glass video I'm making today, and I thought I would just add a little new texture to my videos. They must all look pretty much identical, doing the same dog walk in the morning, and my walk home is actually so interesting, especially at like a time like this with these slushy, disgusting final snowfalls before we get into spring, which could not come too soon. Anyway, the Pipulate project has reached a really interesting point in that I just added the documentation tab, and every project undergoes an interesting phase of growth when it starts to have its own built-in self-referential documentation. And I put my first link in to a Google Slides presentation, which admittedly is just the title page of the presentation, but now that is like a foothold for growth, a beachhead, a toehold, so I can start putting different links in the documentation tab that gets created on every single Pipulate document. So you're facing a blank document, you hit the bookmarklet, bam, the documentation tab appears. You flip to it, oh, here is a PowerPoint style deck. Here is a link to a YouTube video. Maybe I'll give links to Levinux for letting people run it for the first time locally on their own desktop. I can document individual functions in there, perhaps. Or I guess most importantly, I can document the Pipulate workflow, how you can let it initialize a document, a worksheet, by keeping sheet 1 empty. When you click the bookmarklet for the first time, it'll set up some sample rows and columns, setting the stage for a trending job. Or you can actually fill in sheet 1 and start doing question mark replacement immediately, an experiment. Then if you need to turn it into trending, you do need the special knowledge of adding a count column and a date time stamp column, and replacing the question marks with asterisks. But as soon as you do that, you've got a trending job. You'll probably need to switch to the config tab and give it a time period, whether it's going to process hourly or daily or weekly or whatever. And so we're really close to Pipulate being an active everyday use. I'll still have to resolve who I'm going to let use the Pipulate.com instance of the application. Shall we call it the master or the specification instance? I'll be whitelisting some Gmail addresses for that, so people will be able to come look at it and go, oh, isn't that nice? But it's not going to sprinkle the magic fairy dust onto your Google spreadsheets unless you're on this list. And I'm thinking of maybe controlling that whitelist from a Google Plus group. So all the members of a group or a circle essentially controls permission. So I would be like grandfathering in beta testers. And when I am ready to pull the cord on that, I'll announce it, and the first X number of people in get to use it on that master instance, which gets to the point that this kind of application is rarely ever free out there, because you're hitting APIs and you're using up quotas, and some of the APIs are not free, and no one wants to run all these social media and SEO lookups against all these different data sources. Twitter API, Facebook Open Graph, search engine position monitoring for free, because you jeopardize the IPs it's coming from if the volume is really high, or you got to pay money for the privilege of using those APIs. That is addressed by Pipulate by distributing the jobs up over hundreds, thousands of individual little servers that are out there, each one running at a relatively low volume, which is part of how different this application is, and how one of my little initiatives and endeavors dovetails into the next. So really what's happening is something I need for myself, for the field of SEO, for my profession, as my secret weapon, is a free and open source project on GitHub, which is wonderful, because I get to build a fan base up around stuff that I rarely have been able to do in the past, because it's all been proprietary secret work for employers. And because it's a single user type application that is that way on purpose, because you don't want tons of users coming in running tons of jobs like this from the same IP, or else it would start to cost someone money. And I can provide this for free to the world, tapping the second thing that I'm doing here, which is making the killer app for Levinux, so that people can see how easy it is to get started with old school Linux, that is Linux without a desktop, running without graphics except for that typing user interface. No matter what desktop environment they're on, Mac, PC, or other Linux desktop like Ubuntu, you just download, double click, you got Levinux, you choose menu option 4, it builds into a Pipulate server, and then there'll be tutorials to let you get in to learn how to do a little bit of programming there, and essentially cut your teeth without paying money for hardware. Which brings us in to the third part of the endeavor, which is Pipulate hardware. Because it's a single user application for the most part, you really don't want this thing running. And I think I might have missed my turn here. That might have been 8th Avenue. Well, anyway, I got wrapped up in my talking. You don't want this running on a virtual server forever. You want to switch it over to your own hardware. And people go, oh, cloud server. Well, you can use a cloud server. You can pay your whatever $10 a month to have this thing running on Rackspace or the Amazon computing cloud. But why, when the class of hardware that you need to host such an app costs $35? And the third tier or pillar or aspect or facet, or fill in your word, part of what I'm doing, which is teaching people how to set up real hardware servers in this brave new world where, in the anti-cloud movement, now that cloud has been the buzzword for a few years already, people should be ready to understand the fact that fully capable servers cost $35, and they're decent little things too. Quad core, 1 gigahertz, or nearly 1 gigahertz in the case of the Raspberry Pi B2, 900 megahertz, but they're capable of running full desktops. So even people who are intimidated by the prospect of old school servers, the way I advocate, no big deal. You can totally install Ubuntu or one of the other desktop, Mac/Windows-like Linux environments, and use it that way, have it feel a little bit more friendly. Don't use Vim, the old school, incredibly powerful text editor that I'm advocating. You can use Sublime or whatever. And, I'm only mandating or dictating a few things in my approach, which in the end is Python, the Python programming language. As few dependencies as possible, although I am yielding to the drinking from the well that is Google, but with eyes open, laying out what that really means, and then what else? That's pretty much it. Git. Can't get away from Git.
Ladies and gentlemen, because of a slow train and bandwidth, World Trade Center down E-Trains, our holding stations.
And here I am at Penn Station. Gotta make sure downtown I need to get to the Uptown Express, so I guess I'll wrap that up here. I made every point I need to make. We're 11 minutes into the video. So stick with me. I'm about to document and thereby make useful and approachable all the work that I've been doing over the past many months. And you can jump on the Pipulate bandwagon early and say you were there back when. So thanks for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.